Arthur Morgan's relationship with Hosea Matthews in Red Dead Redemption 2 represents the last thread of wisdom holding the Van der Linde gang together. And it's through this bond that Arthur learns the difference between loyalty and blind obedience. While Dutch is the voice of ideology and ambition, Hosea is the conscience, and Arthur stands between them, shaped by both men in very different ways. Hosea is one of the founding members of the gang and has known Arthur since he was a boy. Where Dutch raised Arthur with speeches about freedom and fighting corruption, Hosea raised him with caution, humor, and skepticism. Hosea understands that outlaw life isn't noble. It's survival dressed up as philosophy. Arthur absorbs that realism more than he realizes, and it becomes the foundation for his later clarity. Unlike Dutch, Hosea never pretends that the gang is building something permanent. He talks openly about slowing down, settling somewhere quiet, and eventually leaving the life behind. Arthur listens to this in a way he never listens to Dutch's grand plans. Hosea doesn't command Arthur, he reasons with him. That mutual respect is rare in the gang, and tells us how deeply Arthur values Hosea's judgment. Their partnership during cons and schemes highlights this dynamic perfectly. Hosea and Arthur work best together when deception replaces violence. Whether they're selling fake moonshine, posing as businessmen, or distracting targets, Hosea emphasizes planning and subtlety. Arthur follows his lead willingly, showing a side of him that prefers intelligence over brute force when given the choice. These moments contrast sharply with Dutch's increasingly reckless operations. As the gang deteriorates, Hosea becomes the first to openly question Dutch's leadership. Arthur notices this immediately. When Hosea expresses doubt, Arthur doesn't push back, he reflects. Hosea voices concerns Arthur has already begun to feel but hasn't yet allowed himself to articulate. This makes Hosea's presence crucial. He validates Arthur's growing unease. Hosea's illness mirrors Arthur's in a symbolic way. He is physically weakening as Dutch becomes more aggressive. Wisdom fades as impulsiveness takes over. Arthur increasingly defers to Hosea for moral grounding, especially as Micah gains influence. Hosea's warnings about Micah are subtle but consistent, and Arthur internalizes them long before Dutch does. The St. Denis bank robbery marks the turning point. Hosea's death isn't just the loss of a man, it's the loss of restraint. When Hosea is executed by the law in broad daylight, Dutch loses his counterbalance. Arthur feels this loss immediately. From that moment on, plans grow louder, bloodier, and less thought out. Arthur understands that without Hosea, Dutch's worst tendencies will go unchecked. Hosea's death also forces Arthur into a new role. He becomes the quiet voice of reason in a gang that no longer wants to hear reason. But Arthur isn't Hosea. He doesn't have the same authority or history. His warnings are dismissed, his concerns framed as weakness. This rejection accelerates Arthur's disillusionment with Dutch. In quieter moments before Hosea's death, Arthur shows a tenderness toward him that he rarely shows anyone else. He worries about Hosea's health, encourages him to rest, and defends him when others dismiss his caution as fear. Arthur's protectiveness reveals how deeply he fears losing the last person who understands both him and the cost of their life. After Hosea is gone, Arthur's memories of him guide his choices, helping John escape, prioritizing innocent lives, and abandoning Dutch's fantasies all echo Hosea's philosophy. Hosea believed survival without humanity wasn't worth it. Arthur adopts that belief in his final days, even when it puts him at odds with the gang. Hosea never gets to see Arthur's redemption, but he doesn't need to. He planted the idea long before Arthur acted on it. Arthur's final decisions aren't a rejection of Dutch alone. They're a fulfillment of Hosea's quiet hope that Arthur would one day choose sense over slogans. In the end, Hosea Matthews isn't remembered through grand speeches or heroic last stands. He's remembered through the man Arthur becomes after losing him. And in that sense, Hosea's influence survives longer than Dutch's ever could. Not in dreams of freedom, but in the hard, human choices Arthur makes when it matters most. Hosea's influence on Arthur goes beyond strategy and heists. He is often the voice of reason when Dutch's plans become reckless. He teaches Arthur the importance of patience, planning, and understanding human nature, which contrasts sharply with the impulsive tendencies of other gang members. These lessons not only guide Arthur in missions, but also shape his moral reflections,